What's up, Hobby Maniacs? Rob Bear here with part 2 of assembling the Tyrannocyte. Now, it turned into a bigger project than we thought it was going to be because it's actually 3 different kits, and I wanted to show you how to make all 3 and the mucilid spore pod. So it got a little bit involved, so we split it into 2 parts, but that's okay because this is a great tutorial and show you a lot of different skills to put together some of these newer computer design kits that Games Workshop's coming out with, and I'm sure we're never going to see the end of that. So it's good to pick up these skills, add them to your hobby arsenal so you can, work on any of these kits that Games Workshop comes out with. If you haven't checked it out already, head on over to the Long War because we got a lot of stuff going on over there. We just added a new podcast. It's on episode 2. By the time this comes out, it'll probably be about episode 3. So now's the time to get in on all the shenanigans with me, Kenny Boucher, and Juice over there on thelongwar.net. Well, that's about it for this one, so let's head on into the tutorial itself. Okay, so here's where we left off last time. We got the bottom assembly all put together with the specific legs, and then we're getting ready to do the top half, which should have already been done, but we've got to go back and add one quick piece to it. This is the capillary tower kind of claw feeder thing. It's a technical term, only the Tyranids know exactly what it's called, but we need to make a bunch of those and then glue them onto the top piece. So grab the one that you have left over, still drying with some rubber bands on it. But before we add those pieces to it, we're going to hit up the feeder mouth kind of thing, and it's a pretty simple assembly. It's just 2 parts. They just basically lock in one right in the center there, kind of the bullseye slot, and then you have the other ring that basically goes around the outside there. Super easy, it should all fit together as long as you spent the time, kind of making sure that assembly on the top kind of all went together correctly. It's very easy to do at this point. Now next up, I'm going to add some glue to the slot here on the side for that little kind of feeder grabber thing. That it's a super easy piece, just dab some glue on it. I like to kind of dab the glue off on a separate paper towel to get it a little bit tacky so it'll hold pretty good. You see right there, it was already held nice and neat, and I just basically add them all together in like less than 5 seconds. It's super easy to do. Now next up is the actual weapons to the drop pod itself, but what I wanted to do was glue them on, but then I realized, I started looking at the pictures and I was like, I'm not going to glue this on because these are probably going to get painted a different color. So I was like, alright, well, we'll leave those off for contrast. They're easy, it's a 1-part thing. If they need to get glued on at a later date, it's super easy to do. So now we have the tendrils that kind of basically give it its ability to kind of float around or lift itself up around the battlefield. And these go on like the midsection where the 2 halves are going to kind of attach the top half here that we're working on and the bottom half that we worked on in the last video. So basically just, lock them all in around it, because what you're going to want to do is when you're attaching these together, and right here you can kind of see the clam pieces. Now I thought it'd be a lot more difficult to put this thing together than it was, but once you line it up, there's a neat trick, and you can kind of see it right there where the 4 pieces or 4 halves kind of come together and form kind of like a crossroads right there. So it's easy to line up. Once you line it up like that, you just basically have to hit up a ring of glue around the inside of it and then just kind of lock it in and give it a few minutes to dry. And it was actually it was more solid to hold together than I thought it was going to be. So I glued those feeder tendrils on the ones around the midsection there already, because I wasn't sure if it would be difficult to do once these halves were attached. It turned out you could probably do it in any order. It doesn't really matter, but at this point it's all together for the most part except for the armor plating, so it looks very stunning already. Now the armor plates itself for this version do not actually attach using another piece. They attach using those little nubs right there you can kind of see on the close-up, and you would just attach those to it, just glue it right down. Now again, this is probably going to be a piece that's going to get painted a separate color, so I left those off and didn't glue those on, because you normally when you see Tyranids, the armor plates are all a different color. So I just wanted to make sure I gave Kenny all the options available to him so he could paint them whatever his whatever color scheme he's going to go for. But traditionally the armor plates are a different color. Alright, so next up is the Sporocyst, which is basically that little fat thing that just kind of sits on the ground and spits out a bunch of bugs. A bunch of floaty, stupid bugs. So first off, you got to grab the top assembly, which you're going to need another one. if depending on how you want to do the kit, but it's something we've already done in the past videos, so you should already have it handy if you decided to make this one here. And then you're just going to glue it down to the base that you saw there. Next up, you got to grab the basically like the little I guess spore launcher kind of things. Now these are it's a really interesting way they made these. So it's kind of like two-part clam halves that go together, but then those clam halves, once they dry, go in with with like 3 other assemblies of these kind of like clamshell kind of things too. So it seems a little bit confusing here, but once you kind of glue them all together, the separate assemblies, they will all glue together. If you give them enough time to dry and get them nice and square and flush, they will all glue together into a kind of like a triangle kind of pyramid spore launcher kind of configuration here. That's it's kind of cool looking. I mean, you could use this thing as a piece of terrain on its own on like a 40 mil base if you weren't going to kind of use the Sporocyst option. So obviously these are extra pieces that come with the kit. If you're just buying the kit for the Tyrannocyte or the Mucolid pod, then you'll have these pieces left over, and make a pretty neat piece of little terrain. That being said too, conversely, you see right there at the top ring that there's all those kind of like I guess feeder teeth kind of mouthpieces from the Tyrannocyte would be left over as well if you wanted to use those for something different, depending on which version of this kit you're going to build. Now, unlike the Tyrannocyte, the armor plating is not going to go on without an extra piece here, because it basically props itself up. And you can also actually make the Tyrannocyte with this piece here, extended or unextended. It just kind of depends on what you want to do, but the instructions say to just basically glue the armor plates to the Tyrannocyte. But for the Sporocyst, you're going to want to glue this little extender piece on that you see right here. It attaches very easily. Again, not going to glue it down because it's probably going to be painted a different color, but you see how it locks in there right at the top, the same spot that basically you would glue it on for the for the Tyrannocyte, but then it's got that extra support pieces right there. So I guess it's just basically to make this thing look a little bit more dynamic, which it really does. Now, there's going to be some gaps on this thing along the seams. So I guess basically what these little tendril kind of things are for is for Games Workshop basically wants you to use these to glue them on to try to break up the profile of that big huge straight line down all the sides. So what I did was I just went in and put them in all the corners across the bottom, kind of to offset the little tendrils, which you kind of see the slot recesses right there. So you're going to put in those little feeder tendrils right now, the bigger ones, and then the little ones are going to kind of offset it and kind of trick your eye to take away from the big crack going down the middle. It's not like a bad crack or anything. It's not like not filled right or didn't form right. It's just that's just the way they designed it. There's not much you can do about it there. So you're gonna just glue down all those feeder tendrils around the perimeter of the actual Sporocyst itself. And what I did was I just kind of supported them on the table there so they glue down and have support. And then you can kind of see where the armor plate's going to go on and kind of how it's just going to, turn into the kit eventually as soon as everything's dry. So very easy kit there. Last up is the Mucolid Spore. This thing's kind of neat. It's really tall, and a lot of people are using these in their armies already for Tyranids. So I thought it'd be pretty neat to just show you every piece of thing that's new about this kit that you can make. So obviously it's going to have the 2 halves to the head, the left and right. Very easy to go together. There wasn't even a lot of flash to trim off of it, and then what happens is that you're gonna have to line up one of the legs, and there's very specific legs that they kind of lock into it. Now here's the big caveat for this whole kit. These legs are what you use for the Tyrannocyte, so you can't make both the Sporocyst and the Tyrannocyte, or excuse me, the Mucolid and the Tyrannocyte pod. So you kind of see there in the picture that you've got the 4 legs that we used to make the Tyrannocyte pod. And then we just grab the one that kind of looks like the Loch Ness Monster kind of coming up out of the water there. And what's going to happen is you're just going to kind of lock it into the slot on the back seam. It's very easy. And then you see there, it just locks right in, and that gives you the definition and the positioning for the other sets of legs, because now there's a specific order that you put them in. There's 3 of the same, so they basically just lock in all around. And as long as you do it right and get a nice kind of flush seal to it, what's going to happen is that they're just gonna basically all lock in and make that nice plane for you to put it onto a base. And make sure this one goes opposite to the one you just did there, and that's the one with the little tendril stalk coming off the top. And then the other two just go right on the side. Super easy. You see they all form up a line, and it balances on its own power there, so everything went well. And just throw it on a 40 mil base. Super easy to go. Now we got to do a little bit more work at the top here. So there's a couple of I guess like gas sacks, for lack of a better term. They just basically lock into those 3 recesses right there, and it doesn't go in the opposite way, so you can't really mess it up as long as you have the one that goes on the right or the one on the left, so you don't have to worry about that. As long as it fits, it's probably the right part. And then there's these little, well, these are the tentacles that we couldn't figure out what to do with the Tyrannocyte that Games Workshop kind of messed up on the instruction manual. So they go in on the left and right, where these are the ones with the flush straight shafts that lock into the pod top. And then you've got the little tendrils that go right next to it. So they kind of form this assembly of tentacles going around the gas sack at the top there. So it's actually a really interesting kit. You know, something like this, I'm not sure that they could have sold on their own, because, you know, it'd be like a $30 clam pack almost. So it is kind of nice that it comes with the kit itself, but I don't think it could ever get sold on its own, because we know how the pricing goes with those guys. So that's pretty much it. That is all the options for the Tyrannocyte and the Sporocyst and the Mucilid pod itself. So pretty cool kit. You know, I really enjoyed this one here. Putting it all together, kind of had to split it apart for you guys. So that's it for this one, guys. Make sure you head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content and early access videos, and now new and exciting podcasts as well on the tabletop hobby. Become a veteran of the Long War today.
Yo, Hobby Maniacs, thanks for checking out my channel. Don't forget, there's tons of other tutorials, unboxings, and tips and tactics videos on here as well. And make sure you visit my best friend Kenny B's fresh hobby channel over on Next Level Painting.